and it was you know, those days were, you know, quite special days where community really mattered. And a lot of people used to tell stories to each other, and I grew up in that. And I played a lot of sports, but I went between the two. And my grandfather, I think, you know, because he never really got to do what he wanted to do, he was sort of living through me a little and pushing me along and made me give up rugby and told me to go to a drama school in London. Yeah.
Which you won a scholarship to?
Yeah, well, I couldn't go for 2 years. I go into Bristol or Vic first, which is one of the better ones, which is close to Wales. And then
did you win the Anthony Hopkins?
And yeah, and then I couldn't do it for a year, and then I got to Lander and I couldn't do it again, and then Anthony Hopkins paid for like a lot of my school fees. Yeah, so I was quite lucky, and I was then able to go to drama school, which costs about $100,000, and leave with no debt, which was. You know, because I had it all paid for me, so I had to wait 2 years, but it was worth it.
We have doctors in Canada who spend less on their education than the actors in America. Isn't that amazing?
I don't know what I got for that $100,000. A really hardy liver, I think.
But Paul, how did you end up working in Canada?
Well, Canadian women are beautiful. And then, yeah, you do know that, don't you? They're quite special.
It's good clean water.
Yeah, it's good clean water. No, I did come over for a woman, actually. It's probably a little bit more than you need to know about me. We won't carry on with that because I'm since divorced. No, I came over and, you know, to live here for a little bit. It was easier for me to get work in Canada than it was vice versa. Like an actress getting the work in London is really difficult if she's from North America. But a British actor moving to Canada is a hell of a lot easier for me to get work. And it was a bit of a bind because I was doing really well in London, and I was really loving the theatre work and had an incredible agent, and I lived with amazing people. I had an amazing community of like amazing actors that I lived with, and I left it all behind and went to Canada. And yeah, it took me about 2 years to recover from that ridiculous mistake. But since, you know, it's come back around, and I'm really quite happy that I moved to Toronto.
And we're happy to have it.
And I have another wonderful community of, you know, amazing friends who are actors, and I live a really quite blessed life there. I mean, I really am quite lucky, and every day I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, Toronto's a beautiful city. It's absolutely beautiful. I was doing a little research, and Kris, I don't know, I vacationed there last year, so.
In the summertime, it's nice.
Now, I did some research, and Kris, is it true that you were a champion competitor in riding and fencing?
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about that. That's really interesting.
Well, it actually answers the question you asked earlier.
Is this the 4 a.m. fencing?
Which you're still marked by? I think I gave you that one.
Yeah, you did. Sorry.
Yeah, I grew up in a farming town in southern Ontario, and I grew up horseback riding. My mom was my mom's dream, and I was doing 3-day eventing, and I was getting to quite a high competitive level, just pre-Olympic. It's called intermediate level. So you're having to spend a lot of money, and I'm at an Olympic barn, and I realized that it wasn't really my dream; it was my mom's dream. And but within the horseback riding community, there's an association for kids called Pony Club, and that's an international association. And there's a little sport in that called tetrathlon, which is riding, running, swimming, and shooting air pistols. And so you do this as like a 16-year-old, and it turned out that I was quite talented at it. And you know, I was going to the national level, and I'm meeting all these great people. And then there's an Olympic sport called pentathlon, which is those 4 sports with fencing on top of it. So the natural progression is you go from one to the other. And I found out within that I was a very talented swimmer. So I dropped out of horseback riding, became a competitive swimmer for a few years. And this was all during high school. And I remember my buddy who I'd done this triathlon with, I'm like training my ass off and swimming like about 22 hours a week. And I'm going to nationals in Sudbury, Ontario, which is a little mining community in the middle of nowhere. And he is training with me, and he's going to Junior Worlds for pentathlon in Rome, Italy. And I thought, you know what? I can do what you do. I can learn how to sword fight. And so yeah, the next year I started fencing, and then I won junior nationals that year, and then got a spot on the senior national team and was competing abroad for about 4 years. But there's no funding for Canadian athletes. So I was sitting there totally broke, middle of university. I'm studying international commerce. I guess the preface is I did want to become an actor as a kid, but my dad was like, no way, you're going to business school. And I had to agree with him because I didn't know the first thing about acting. I'm like, okay. And yeah, I was sitting in a cafe in Montreal, angst-ridden because I didn't know how I was going to pay off my like $22,000 of credit card debt that I've racked up traveling around the world. And I saw this little ad in a newspaper. It's like, one, actors and models. Come pay us $500 to get your headshot, and we'll get you some work. Total scam thing, right? But I was like, oh my God, maybe I can do this. I was working a bartending job, and I needed something. So I went, paid my $500, and the photographer actually said right up, he's like, kid, you're never going to be a model. Your nose is too big. You look too weird. He's like, but it's a great way to meet chicks. And I'm like, okay. Thanks, buddy. I don't have a problem with chicks, but I have a problem with my bank account. Yeah, this agent still got, she was legit enough that she actually got breakdowns, which is how we get our jobs or get auditions. And an audition came along for a period piece kids movie called Young Ivanhoe. And I had the right look, I could sword fight, I could fence, I could sword fight and ride, and 4 callbacks later, the director called me personally and he said, I can't give you this part because you've never acted before in your life. I wish I could, but I can't. And I was crushed, and like I spun out. But then about 4 days later, I called back and said, you know what, come back and meet a couple other women, we'll do a screen test. And one of them was Rachel Blanchard. And yeah, we just, at the end of that session, he said to me, I can't not cast you in this part, because you are this character. And so he took a big risk on a kid who had never done anything, flew me over to Prague. I shot 5 weeks and played the lead in this movie, and dropped out of school as soon as I got back home. And yeah, the rest is history, so to speak.
Now that's an interesting journey.
Yeah, that can be more polar opposite to mine. Mine was very, very by the numbers. That was not by the numbers. That's all.
Now let's talk about the audition process for Lost Girl and how you guys got the roles.
Well, I just went in there, did my scene, and that was it.
It was just so good, they just went, welcome.
Literally just went in and did it once. I never had a callback, I didn't do anything.
It's got a great fake British accent.
No, it was great. I did just sometimes when you do an audition, or sometimes when you get a part. I mean, you know when it's right. For me, anyway. I mean, I know that when I can get into a ballpark or a range where I know if I do the right thing, and I'm 2 inches less than the other guy, and my eyes are a little bit more brown, or when those decisions go your way, that I can definitely be in there or thereabouts, and that they usually don't need to see me again because like I'll do it well enough on the first time. And I don't have too many roles where I need to, take my kid off like this guy and get into bed with people, so I don't do too many screen tests for...
My days are chemistry done with that, though.
So I don't do chemistry reads, which is then generally when you get all those crazy callbacks where, they want to check to see, if you have something going between the two of you and all that sort of shit. Or, you didn't quite do a good enough job in the first audition and then they need to bring you back again because they like your look but you were shit. And they just want to see,
the director wants to see if you can take direction as well.
Yeah.
Like you may do a great take one time, but they want to see if you're adaptable and if you can work back and forth. That's what a lot of the callback is sometimes for.
And I would say our Lost Girl auditions were getting to be quite unique because actually nearly everyone was in the room. Like it was stacked, and it was a small room. This is place at that point in time. And a lot of the times you'll either see the casting director first, and then they say, okay, these are our picks, and then you meet maybe the director and producer. But it's very rare that you have you get lots of people in there, and it was a stacked room from Jay to to Wendy,
Vanessa, Wanda,
John Fawcett, like both casting directors, like they were all in there, and it was clearly a project that they were, you know, they really wanted to get right, and they spent time on it. Yeah, so I did the one audition, and then I waited for 3 weeks. I said, I'm going to Morocco, because they were like, they really like it, they're just waiting on network approval. And then I just went to Morocco for a couple of weeks and got a call in Marrakesh saying that, yeah, even though my character at that point died in the pilot, it was, I knew it was a really cool part, so I thought, well, at least I have one cool part on my show reel.
But he was so cool that they said, we can't possibly kill this guy. In fact, he has survived. Well, I can't even say, but
I know.
He just keeps surviving this
I have the cat in the show. But I think, yeah, and that's my, this is completely different, but
well, not so much. Well, yeah, I guess it is. Because I had to do the chemistry test that he's talking about. It's like, so when I read this, I immediately gravitated to it. Like, I grew up reading, I'm a geek and nerd. I was reading Dragonlance, playing those little TSR Dungeons and Dragons games on my Commodore 64. Remember when you like, dragons. You know, like, honestly, I would play those games for like hours and like live in my imagination. I'm an only child that grew up on a farm. It was me, my dog, and my bow and arrow in the back countryside fighting goblins.
yeah.
And so,
Still does this too. 4 in the morning.
He was my goblin. Yeah, and you know, like, Paul went to Lambda. I had my imagination and a forest and a bow and arrow, and that was kind of my training for like how to live in these imaginary worlds and make them real. And so when I read Lost World, I was like, this is something that I can sink my teeth into. And so I knew that I wanted this. The pilot script was fantastic. It was dark, it was gritty, it was like, it was a little bit more mature than how the show ended up going. Different, you know, there's a lot of different voices as the show develops and they can change, but that first pilot script by Michelle Loretta was just what I wanted to do.
Yeah, very similar to True. Oh, well, it was you know, it was different to True Blood. But I remember True Blood started off in a similar vein. It had that. There was some cool stuff happening and the darker edge stuff going on with that.
When we were shooting our pilot, there
and then you know, True Blood was a different way completely as well.
Yeah, see, that's what happens. Things change. But yeah, I read this and I remember walking into my first audition and just kind of going, this is mine. You know, you walk into an audition room and there's all these guys sitting around and I was just like, sorry fellas. And this is not saying that aloud. You might as well all go home. No,
this is another trait of Kris Holden-Ried. He is incredibly competitive. 4 in the morning.
I definitely have a healthy sense of competitiveness,
which I think every actor has to have.
Yeah.
I think well, not every actor.
You just can't let it become your dominant nature.
Yeah.
You know, you have to use it for its purposes, but you can't let it become something that affects your relationships negatively.
No, because it's play, and you have to have a certain amount of like competitiveness and confidence to play.
And it's all collaborative, right? So yes, you can be competitive. I want to be good, do the best that I can be, and that's kind of how you have to gauge it. It's not about I'm going to be better than you.
Yeah.
It's like I'll be my best, you'll be your best, and you know, life rules that we all figure out along the way. Anyway, so I did this thing, and then I had to go and do a screen test with Anna still. And there was another woman there who I won't mention because I don't remember her name, to be honest. But I knew it was going to be Anna. Like, I could just tell. And Anna says later, she's like, I knew it was going to be you too. So we just kind of, we went in, we knew we just had to hit it out of the park. And what we did was, there was a makeout scene, and I just grabbed her, lifted her up, and we went up against the wall to like, you know, have a really like intense like makeout. And I didn't realize this though, she was wearing a very short skirt. And it was starting to, as I lifted her up, it rode up. And she, like my body was covering her, but she told me after, she was just like, holy fuck, my skirt, my skirt, my skirt. And I put her up against this wall, and all we heard was, and I put her into the wall hard enough that we broke the drywall. And yeah, and Jay Firestone, our executive producer to this day, goes, I knew at that moment that I got my right too. Actually, we broke through the wall, which in theater is a term. There's the fourth wall, which is the imaginary wall, and trying to break through the wall. So, yeah.
And then you were cast.
That was it. Just bust shit. Anna's okay. She has recovered. Yeah.
So I'm just going to ask a couple more questions, and then I'm going to turn it on over to the audience. Now I want you guys to be thinking about good questions now. Okay?
Yeah, because all of his was shit.
It was called acting. No, I mean, we have a dark fae here and a light fae. You know, good guy, bad guy. Would you ever want to switch the roles?
No. Nah, why bother?
You know, I think we both were cast very suitably for what we do. I'm really blessed to have played Dyson, like that, the shape shifting, just all the different things that I've been able to do through this character. The cop kind of work, the fantasy kind of work, the body swap, like all these different things that we've had to explore on this show. It's really been like, we both said, we come out of this, and there's really nothing we can't do now. It's been an incredible training ground, just for our craft, because the show is very challenging. Like it's fast and it's furious how we shoot it. The lines, when you read them on the paper, sometimes seem totally ridiculous. And you have to make this stuff real, right? Yeah. It's like, how many times did we say the Garuda in season 2? Like, by the end of it, we wanted to shoot ourselves in the face if we just had to say Garuda one more time.
Yeah, it's true. We did it. People don't realize. Yeah, a lot of other shows, particularly American shows. I mean, it took a lot longer to film. The big budgets are way bigger.
Way bigger.
And the amount of support level that you have is greater. You know, a lot of the time, writing has gone through so many different processes to get to where it needs to be. But things work a little bit quicker in Canada. I mean, it's down to funding, down to scheduling, down to all that stuff. And sometimes the pressure's on because you're like, especially when we were coming to filming the last season. So you're like, you're closing out stories, you're closing out the things that matter to people who are fans of the show. And you want to get those things right, and you want to make those right choices. And it has to be done sometimes really quickly. You don't get to talk about it. You're on the floor, you're going, okay, this is a major choice right here. We're coming to the end. Yeah. This has a dramatic effect on where this is all panning out. But yeah, it's good though. And keeps you on your toes. And when we move into a bigger project with more time and money, it'll be a lot easier for us.
Now, season 5 is premiering soon.
Yes.
In December.
In Canada, yeah.
December 7th, which means you all will be watching December 8th.
Yeah. Got any tidbits that you'd like to throw out?
I don't know what you're talking about.
If you all shut off your cameras, we can tell you all you want to know.
And you pinky swear not to tell anybody about it. Pinkies in the air.
Where do we start?
Where do we start?
Where do we end?
So we're 8 and 8, yeah? So,
oh yeah, I don't know if you know that, but it's we did 16 episodes that are going to end. Oh, I think Anna announced this, right? That we're doing 16, and then it will air as 8 and 8.
Yeah, so I think the first 8 will happen as of January, with all those breaks in between, in January and February, for all those crazy holidays, Super Bowls, Oscars. It's always you forget about all those days that you missed.
So really it'll take 4 months.
4 months to get through 8 episodes. And then they planning September for the next 8.
I don't know.
I think they said September. So we're on for most of next year.
Well, let's see. Spoilers they asked about. What?
Just a little nugget.
Well, I look different. I pretty much look like... Well, no. My character choice for Vex in season 5 was after being responsible for the death of Kenzie and Hale, that Vex basically went off to Berlin and partied really hard for 2 months. So he sort of come back with a little bit of a Hitler.
He comes back speaking German, looking like Heil Hitler. He's Vex of the Third Reich.
Pretty much.
A little mustache.
No, it's different. He's come back, and he's come back to try and make amends. I think he's gone away to think about what's happened. He, obviously really distraught with what happened to Kenzie. It's not that I don't think he ever wanted to do that. He was just kind of duty bound by this relationship that he had with Massimo.
And the nice thing about season 5 is actually there's great episodes for Paul and I where we...
My first episode back, actually.
And it's really just the two, well, there's other stuff going on, but we're the two people that actually really kind of go through that. And so yeah.
Yeah, we actually really, that's the episode was written by Stephen, Steve Cochran. And for me it was a really great episode because I sometimes find with shows that huge things happen and you don't necessarily, you want the characters to go through that process of, it's like if anything happened in your life, you want to go through that process of catharsis, of going through it, of having that argument or having that one big thing of like, let's get through, like, I hate you, you're responsible for that. And like sometimes even with family members it takes like 2 years and then eventually you go, well, you treated me that way and you did that, well, yeah, well, that was because of this. And we have a whole episode where we get to basically hash out all of our grievances, and you know, it's all through our relationship with Kenzie and Hale and what happened. And I think it's a massive turning point for both of the characters in lots of senses. And then we have a very different relationship as we move forward. And
there's some new characters who get introduced this year. But really, what this
your son? No.
No.
Oh, is it your daughter?
Yeah, that's right.
Or is it your long lost?
My long lost wolf love.
Your long lost. You have a daughter, don't you?
Yeah, right.
Wolf daughter.
What we get to do though, which is really nice about this season, is that we get to end the show. We knew that we were going to come to an end, so we got to round off the storylines. So, and I think that I was actually quite happy with how we ended the show. Whereas a lot of shows just get cut off, you know, and you're kind of left in that mid-trailer, what's going to happen next? We actually get to end it in a nice way. And so everything about these 16 episodes is like ramping up to exploring those last questions that were really pertinent to Beau's life, coming to some conclusions, some character conclusions. A couple new things get introduced, but then at the end, it's really about...
Yeah. So it's all family. I would say the big one's family. Like, you know, he's got a whole family of wolf cubs that we get introduced to. And I get my father, which is Marilyn Manson. Yeah, it's awesome. But you know, here's a tidbit, here's a good spoiler. Well, it's no spoiler, it's just info. On season 4, we were actually scheduled to do a scene with Marilyn Manson.
He was going to come and do the show.
He was going to come and play my father. And we were all down to do it. I was booked in and he was coming in to tour, and the whole studio was booked out on a Saturday. So something happened with the scheduling of the tour, with where they were flying from, and he got delayed and he didn't make it to the airport on time for whatever reason. And we had to cancel it, and I was so sad because I felt that would have been such an incredible little addition to the show, and particularly Vex's character. Like, I was like, if anybody was going to play Vex's dad, that would be the guy.
Yeah.
And we had these scenes written out; they were great. And
Gene Simmons.
Or Gene Simmons. Yeah. So yeah, there's something that didn't happen that may have happened.
Okay, my final question for you is, you guys were in a movie called Sex After Kids, and I watched the trailer. I thought it looked great. I really want to see this movie.
You should.
Yeah, you should.
It came out like last year, but can you talk a little bit about working on that film?
It's on demand.
Sex After Kids was developed by Jeremy Lalonde, who's a young, upcoming, very talented director in Toronto. I met Jeremy about 4 or 5 years ago with his first feature. He's an editor by trade, and he's worked into everything. Script writing, directing, producing, like he's a one-man army, and very talented. And we did Paul Shepard, which was a very small little mockumentary kind of movie by the young man in love. With Zoe. That's where I met Zoe before. That was in between shooting the pilot and shooting season 1. So I don't know if you know this or not, but Zoe did not play Dr. Lauren in our pilot. There was another actress who played her. But who was not comfortable with some of the things that some of the sexuality of the show, so they had to recast. And so when I worked with Zoe on Paul, we're talking about Lost Girl. She's like, oh, that sounds really cool. Only to find out a year later that we're working together again on it. It was terrific. But Jeremy is, yeah, he's an amazing talent. He writes these scripts too. So Sex After Kid was his second offering. It was ultra low budget. We shot it because, we shot it over 8 weekends over an entire summer. So we would shoot during the week on Lost Girl and go on our weekends and shoot this movie. I'll never do that again. And we were really dubious about what kind of a project it was going to come out to.
Yeah, it was tough because it was a series of vignettes, yeah. It was a very Altman-esque approach to the movie, and I had no idea what it was going to be like because everything I had to do was with Zoe and then that one scene with you. So it was like you had no real sense of the movie.
He calls it a scene with me. I'm just laying passed out on the floor.
Yeah. So and that's not the first time that's happened.
Hey.
So yeah, it was great. It was a great movie, and I think it did really, really well. It's a really sweet little comedy, and particularly if you are a father, like or a mother. Or a mother.
There are.
Those people that pop them out.
Yeah, please check it out. It's on demand. It's a very cute little romantic comedy. High on the comedy. It's really
and if
sweet.
you like it, go on Indie and buy it because the extras are super.
Oh, are they? Good to know.
Oh, I haven't seen the
on
extras.
YouTube doing commentary.
Oh!
Really? That was on there.
I remember
That was like midwinter at my house. Jeremy. Oh yeah, we were drinking.
Oh yeah, I was
a little under the weather, I think.
Yeah.
I have a 7-year-old son who just brings home like he's a petri dish. He's just like, here, Daddy. Disease.
Yeah.
Oh boy, I forgot. I remember we were very low energy at first, and then we kind of ramped up.
Yeah.
I didn't think we were particularly funny. I'll have to watch that.
No, that was. Thanks for the info about the movie. I mean, like I said, the trailer looked amazing. Okay, now time for questions. Who has a question? Oh, good.
Yeah.
Ready for stand up, please.
I have a question about sort of watching yourself. Like, do you ever watch what you've done? You know, watch Lost Girl, and then see a scene that came out really different from what you thought it was after editing?
Not so much. I mean, I am sometimes surprised a bit by, you know, if my performance, you know, maybe subtle things, but after a while, you know what you're doing as you're doing it. I mean, they can mess with it in editing a bit. Like, yes, if they cut out the climactic scene, part of the scene where, you know, the scene turns and they cut that out, then yeah, that's shocking. But for the most part, you kind of know what you're doing as you're making it. And like, often I'll go back to the camera and I'll actually watch the take just to make sure I was reading.
And I'd say that's also down to the nature of how we film. Is that, you know, you've only got so many cracks at the work, you know, you've got to get it right pretty quickly, to be honest with you. So your room for maneuver is different. But for instance, like I'm working with a director right now who he just did a movie last year, and he said that he would try and get like 25 takes because he's very similar to Jeremy in the sense that he's a director-editor. And director-editors, what they prefer to do is to get a range of performances within the scene. And they can take a lot of takes. And then they'll take all of that footage and they'll craft your performance based on the range, based on what they want to do, which is very different to our show, which is like we go in and from start to finish in that scene, I know exactly what I want to get out of it. But working sometimes in film, particularly more independent film, you can sometimes see a scene that you do and you go, oh wow, I would never have built my performance that way, but that's really interesting.
But we just don't have the time a lot. Like, we do 3 takes, and if there's screw up 4, only if there's something technically or something wrong. But I mean, you don't get a chance to do multiple performances.
Yeah.
You lay it.
There's a little bit, a tiny bit of road for maneuver.
Like, if you're not delivering a moment, and the director catches it or really wants you to put something in, yes. But for the most part, really we only get to do one version of what we do.
Yeah, and there's all different kinds of mediums. It's like, you know, I'm working in a medium like right now with like motion capture, and you have to, there is only one way that thing can be done. So you spend the whole time compressing, rehearsing, and doing different things until you get that one. And when once you nail that one, that's it. There's no other. There's no other. It's just, yep, choose A. That's my A, that's my B, and then everything else is cut. And you may have done like 15 or 20 of them. But yeah, there's only that A and B, they're the only two. But with us, it's very similar, I would say, to that.
Unless we're doing like things that are really outside of what we like the body swapping episode, for instance. They throw that at you, and it's like, oh, I have a week to prepare another character, like a whole so you know, I'm doing Kenzie, and I really didn't know how it was gonna read. Like I was hoping for the best. And you know, and this is the fun thing about law school, is it throws you these curveballs every once. Like every season.
There's one this season. There's big one this season.
For sure. And I actually just watched the footage of it, and thank goodness. Like it literally came together on the day. I didn't know it had to do. There was prosthetics involved. There was this and that, and I didn't know how this character I was going to have to do, how it was going to come across, and only because when you're dealing with prosthetics, it's a huge part of the character. And I only got the prosthetics on the day we were filming. So finally, like in between the makeup, which I got there at 3 o'clock in the morning, was in makeup for 4 hours, started shooting at 7:30 in the morning after the crew had set everything up. And I had like 20 minutes in my trailer to kind of look at myself and go, this is how I'm gonna look, okay. So what the hell do I do with this? And like, and you know, you quickly just, you know, it's where your instinct and your intuition comes in. And luckily, you know, so yes, for that, when I saw the final product just a few weeks ago, I was like, okay, yeah, I didn't know, but it worked. Yeah, sort of. Well,
yeah, we're all challenged in that.
Yes, totally.
Prosthetically.
Anybody else for a question? Yep.
Hi. It's obvious that you're all very close to each other. Do you call each other often? Yeah.
Most people I would hit back.
Oh, he did. He just doesn't remember it.
Oh, yeah. We're all close together, yes.
Yeah, no, we have a very tight cast. I mean, like,
yeah.
We've been blessed on this show. A lot of times, you know, there's different kinds of personalities in this industry. There's a lot of crazy people, but on Law School,
yeah, and
we're the crazy ones.
We're the crazy ones, and we often like to play tricks on people and do stuff like that. And we had some really good ones this year. Well, first of all, I may as well tell the story. I might as well tell the schoolboy era. So, first of all, there's a fan who, every fan expert, she brings me hot peppers, the hottest pepper in the world. So this year she brought me the Trinidadian scorpion, which is, you know, the hottest pepper in the world, and I had like 6 of these in my fridge. So we were on a break where we went down to Niagara for the day on a wine tour with a bunch of our cast. And we did it twice this year with like our director, a bunch of us, and we got the law school van. They gave us